Okay, so we've got Tisa Johnson here this morning with Senior Transitioning Services of Iowa. Good morning, Tisa.
Good morning, Greg.
So let's talk a little bit. Tell the group about what your business is and your products and services that you deliver.
Sure. We help older folks get to, you know, make it through a transition through sort of every aspect of what that means. Um, Downsizing or right sizing, as you might put it in a more positive spin, packing, unpacking, figuring out what to do with things that maybe don't make a move. We pack a whole house in one day and we unpack it the next. Um, we help folks with facilitating things like tag sales and buyouts, helping to sell, donate, trash, etc., all the things that come with emptying a house. So really it's walking with families, older adults, their families, who was ever involved, through a transition, whether it be from a larger home down to a ranch. Frequently, it's into senior living for the first time. Sometimes it's making a transition within senior living. And then sometimes it's just home emptying. Maybe the move took place some time ago and it's getting a house ready to sell, etc. So our customers are and clients are as unique as their situations, and so are our services.
Okay, is usually the senior citizen still living, or do you also do it if the person has passed on? Will you go in and help the family in those situations?
Yeah, you're right. Both. I would say about 20% of our business is helping families deal with things after someone has died. And we have a couple of banks that often, and sometimes it's lawyers or trustees, etc., who are also involved, who hire us to help us sort of get through that final hurdle. And it can be everything from especially in the pandemic environment, but even before that, but more so even now. Okay, we're going to have a video call with the son in Tennessee, and we're going to go through his dad's tool bench and literally pick things out over video. If he can't come here, to do that, it's not the same. We wish he could be there with his dad going through the tool bench, but if that's not possible, we can get those things and get them sent, to the sun. And we are shipping large pieces of furniture frequently, across the country. They want that hutch or that dining room, piece, etc. Making sure things are shredded, properly, trying to find where the lockbox keys, are, all those, details. And then very frequently dealing with selling, donating, what the family doesn't want to take on, etc.
Sure. Well, with the population getting older, I would think there's a huge need for your business. We just got to get the word out there that you guys are out there. So we'll try to
Sure.
get that done.
This
Uh, how long have you been in business? How long has this business been up and going?
We just celebrated our 5th anniversary, and the technical industry term for what we do is called senior move management. That's, it has a trade group and an industry name, etc. But you are exactly right. Many people, I hear this all the time. I wish I'd known about you when we did this with my mom 2 years ago, or uh, gosh, I had no idea there was someone who could come help us with these things. But I think 5 years from now, if I tell people I'm a senior move manager, people are going to know what that is, because there is such a tremendous, um, tremendous need.
Yeah. I was in a meeting with a client yesterday and they got a call. His mother was in the hospital and they did have a second place to go to, but they were going to wait and do it next week. And the hospital called and said, her insurance is up today. You have to, get her someplace today. And so he literally had to leave our meeting and get in his car, and him and his brother go up and get the mother moved out of the hospital into a senior living care thing. So if hopefully people don't have to deal with it, but if you do have to deal with it, well, I would think you guys' services would be greatly needed. So,
I
uh,
would say that that particular situation, usually not the same day. It's unfortunate that that happened the same day, but um, these these days in the pandemic, for many people, the idea of moving to senior living voluntarily when the community aspect looks so different than it would have before, and hopefully won't in the future. um, the voluntary moves are a much smaller percentage of what we do, and much of what we do right now is the we thought she was going to go home from rehab or from the hospital, and now they've decided she's not, and that that's not the best move. And so we have 3 days to find a place and get an apartment set up, and we're out of town or we're in town but we can't get to her in the hospital. And we're nervous to go be with her, at home. And we're very lucky that a number of the senior living communities that we work in trust us to do moves safely and with their protocols, combining their protocols with our own company protocols. And so when the family members maybe can't get into the community and get an apartment set up, we can. And much of what we're doing right now is that urgent. It's just got to happen, pandemic or no pandemic. She, they've got to have a bed and a toothbrush like tomorrow. So yeah.
yep. So let's talk about this year of crazy COVID. How has the COVID-19 impacted your business?
Well, it's been like many small businesses, a journey and a challenge and frustrating and all the things. However, I feel very grateful that we are not suffering as much as our friends and colleagues in hospitality, restaurant, etc. We did close for 8 weeks. We probably could have continued to be called essential workers, but we also wanted to do our part to lay low in April and May, and for the safety of my staff, etc. Navigating how to keep our staff as safe and comfortable as possible and our clients as safe and comfortable as possible is ongoing, something that we evaluate every day. But again, we have been super fortunate that the folks we collaborate in senior living, many of them really, we have a great trusting relationship with them. And that's really been able to keep us going because it's awfully we would prefer if our client was sitting right there with us and saying, I want that to go in the kitchen and I want this to happen. But we are trying to do moves as contactless as possible. Often our clients are not there. But we can at least take the burden of the logistics off of the family or the just the older adult themselves, and allow the family to be the emotional support. We're going to get the boxes, we're going to get it set up, we're going to take all the boxes away, we're going to handle returning the MediaCom equipment and all of those things. And so the family member, for the time that they get to spend with their loved one, can simply be the emotional support. So I would say, although it's been extremely challenging and unpredictable, all of those things, I would say I'm most proud of and have found the work that we've done since March like the most rewarding out of, the 5 years for sure.
So you mentioned about your team. How many members of your team do you have?
I have about 10 independent contractors. They work, some of them sporadically. I've got some early retirees, a couple of them snowbirds. So they, work with us when they're in town and very part-time. And some others who work much more frequently, much nearer to, more like a full-time job.
Sure.
So really runs the gamut.
Okay. So we've talked about the impact that COVID has had on the business. How about identifying some of the changes that you've had to make because of COVID?
Yeah, it has forced us to really double down on that idea of process development. It's changed our processes, but in some way, I hope a year from now, I'll look back and say, well, that was a really good thing that it forced us to do it. But it's hard, especially because the processes continue to need evaluation, all the time, for safety. I mean, really, for people's health and well being, we have to be on top of it. But it has forced us to really codify the process as far as like business ownery, kind of things, to really make sure those processes are outlined and um, followed in a much tighter manner, which hopefully will help us to be more replicable, make those things replicable in the future. um, and then, fiscal management's a tricky business with the unpredictability, et cetera. And so, really, it's forced me as a business owner to be much more on top of and intentional about accounts receivable to keep that cash flow, going okay. We were lucky to get, I got a sole proprietor grant through the SBA and IEDA, and that was a big help with my um, fixed expenses, which are fairly low compared to other businesses. And then PPP and unemployment, between all of those things, were huge to keep us floating. And I am, like every business owner everywhere, anxiously watching Congress to see, what happens next as far as second rounds, et cetera.
Yeah, good luck on trying to figure that out. So,
I can't figure it out. I'm just watching with my fingers crossed.
so you've been in business for 5 years now. You've learned a lot of things, probably the hard way. How about some tips for some other business owners out there, whether they're startups or just other people in business, about some things that you've learned in these 5 years and that you would give as advice to other either new business owners or just current business owners?
Sure. I feel rather inept still to give advice, but I can tell you that. So I never intended to be a business owner. Nothing about that has ever appealed to me. My background's in social work. I sort of fell into this work for the first few years, really thinking, well, I don't really want to be a business owner. I just want to help older people. It is my dream job. Like, I absolutely love every moment of what I'm doing when I'm with clients. I don't absolutely love the business aspect of things. However, I've really made a transition in the last couple of years to take ownership and embrace the idea that you are a small business owner who has a growing, thriving business, and folks who depend on you for some income, et cetera. So it's time to be a business owner. And in doing that, I have learned a lot more about really what it takes to be, as they say, on the business versus in the business. And when I'm at my best as a business owner, which doesn't happen all the time, but I am at my best when really I think the sweet spot for me is like 60% in, no more than 60% in, and 40, like 3 days a week in and 2 days a week on. And my sense of mental health and well-being and balance when I am committing to the back end stuff has improved greatly. I feel like the business is no longer eating me alive because I just understand I have to commit to doing all those back end things rather than having them hanging over my head, constantly, or trying to do them at 4 in the morning.
Well, that's a great learning. Hopefully, other business owners out there will take that advice. So that's a good job by you on coming to that realization. So that's awesome. Um, so, last question. I'm going to make you really think now. I want to explain what inspires you.
Hmm. I feel inspired when by the idea of service, like of really being of service to people. I feel inspired by, in that vein, like working with veterans. And the work we do and often involves hearing folks' stories, like the best we physically handle people's treasures, and the best part is getting to know them and know about their treasures. So to recognize and be impacted by the service that our older folks have given to our country, to their own families, to their small towns and communities, in their churches, all of those things inspire me. And I feel, again, most satisfied or most gratified in my, and it makes this small business ownership thing, which again is not my passion. It makes all of that worth it to feel like I am being of service, that we are being of service. People say, you like moving, or everybody hates moving, or who wants to talk about moving, and I, for myself, I totally get it, but when it is an act of service, it feels, you know so easy and so fun. So service, I guess, is my answer to your question.
Okay, excellent. Well, we've been talking with Tisa Johnson, the Senior Transitioning Services of Iowa. Tisa, you guys are doing great things and offer great services out there to the public. So wish you nothing but good luck, and hopefully 2021 is a little more back to normal for everybody. So
You
thank you
bet.
for your time.
Thank you.